All right. Today is, or this will be the fifth episode of B Programming's Bcast. And topic, I generally do not really thoroughly love the idea of always having an agenda. Whatever just comes up or whatever seems to be continuing to come up or trend in my world, okay? So that's how I like to approach it. What's trending? So what seems to be trending right now could be religion. It could be, dissolving dogmatic characteristics or beliefs, creating neurological pathways, creating neurons, how trauma can actually help stimulate growth. It could also hold you back. Yeah. So I've been having really great conversations with some of the key people in my world. And, it's not a whole lot of fun for me to make everything so personal, because then I feel like maybe you may not be able to relate completely. So when I discuss this right now, I want to remind you what's happening with the brain, okay? Like to put it plain and simple, none of this is real. Our perception of things comes from a lot of training. It comes from a lot of programming. It comes from our brain doing its job, right? Predictive, compository synapse. Someone asked me yesterday, well, Shane, how is it that you see these things? They were in reference to some of the work that I do that I don't talk about very much. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to talk about it. I do, let's just say I sometimes people seek out some healing that I help facilitate. It's not me though. It's not at all me. And I don't like to talk about it very much, just because when we work in and with healing modalities, especially that involves a lot of spirit, everything does. Let's take a massage therapist, for example. You are able to tap into the other human body using, empathy, if you will, right? And because of the constant practice, the self-awareness expands into that other human body, right? So you just by touching it and feeling it, you know what's going on. You can feel that knot. You can, by movement, you can see, whoa, that mobility means ... or lack of mobility, right? Okay. Well, let's just take that to an extreme level. Let's take that to go to trauma. Let's say a child, any child. See, once again, it's easier for us to imagine ourselves in the situation so that we can relate. When we identify and say, my childhood, ... okay? So let's just imagine for a second a child that was physically abused. It doesn't have to be any sort of physical abuse, period, right? Because we're learning even like circumcision is some kind of physical abuse, right? Now, that is a topic that we've seen people argue about. We don't need to argue about it. If you, my friend, do not agree with circumcision. That's how you navigate moving forward. Plain and simple. You do not have to hold anything against anyone else, or judge or blame or victimize anyone. You do not have to behave that way. Why? Because you need to evolve. Your perception of everyone else needs to include yourself. So please do not limit yourself in your feelings. Experience your feelings. I'm not saying don't. And also remember that unique is what you are. So your feelings do not have to be some program generated response, habitual. They do not. See, I kind of got off topic there, but okay, the trauma. Now, your brain is creating neurological pathways and drawing those new connections, right? Like it fight or flight could stimulate that. So, like trauma, if you're not getting lost in the drama of things, if you're not wasting your prana with arguing and bickering and blame game and victimizing yourself, holding yourself back, what are you doing? You're learning. You are evolving. You are becoming the master of your universe. Why? Because you need to fucking survive. Not only that, you have a generated automatic evolutionary default that makes you want to thrive. It creates passion. It creates drive. It creates sustainability to such a degree that you think about your future self, which is your children. All right. So, you want to get there, right? You want to get to the point of procreation. So, you need to generate enough sustainability for the self. So if you are being abused, physically abused in one way, shape, or form, and you are not allowing it to hold you back, what you're doing is evolving through some sort of pain and suffering. Now, when you go through all the chemical changes of adolescence and so on, this can come back to haunt you. So don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm not saying that being born into a life of any kind of abuse or trauma, period, is helping you to evolve in a positive way, all the time. The other thing is contradictions. Very funny in the way that we think we know best, right? So when we hear something that triggers us, or that we don't agree with, or that doesn't fully resonate, or we don't want it to, or we do not want to admit the truth, we will automatically generate a response to contradict it. Try to find the contradiction. My friends, let me tell you something, especially in the digital age here in the World Wide Web, if you want the contradiction, you'll find it. I mean, we could every theory needs a hole poked into it to look like Swiss cheese. And yet we still call it laws, Anyway, okay. So without getting off too far topic, we're back onto the trauma of things. So what's happening? My mind is really working overtime. It's like, what's that person look like that abuses me today? I wake up, we got a brand new day, right? So all the data that I collected yesterday, the day before, my brain is assessing subconsciously. Smelling this person? Why? Are they omitting the toxins or the residuals of the toxins that they put into their body the prior day, causing a chemical imbalance, releasing a pheromone or a smell that I have habitually learned that now I see that person is chemically imbalanced today. So something could trigger their anger, right? If a dog has the ability to smell 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000 times better than you, my friend, you have the ability to smell that way. Yes, indeed. You just need to practice. What stimulates evolution? Faster, quicker, stronger, easier? Well, happiness is an easy way, but not this idea of extreme contentment where you're just sitting there like, oh, I don't need to do anything. Here, let me open my mouth, feed me. No. Feeding yourself, watering yourself, caring for yourself, all of these things stimulate your personal growth, your evolution, right? So you're protecting yourself. You're using every sense of the word in regards to protection. You're analyzing all the data, computing all the necessary information, smelling smells, tasting tastes, hearing sounds, seeing, feeling. To such a degree, you have become superhuman in the eyes of others. The need was born into you to evolve this way. So, you even created fantasy lands along the way. You became a liar, right? Why would you become a liar? Because you needed to create a world in which you felt better. Because what you were seeing was not satisfactory to your mental health, right? So you created an illusionary world. And along the way, you may get lost in that. That's where I was talking about the adolescent, the teenage years. That's where the separation can get really wild and you can get lost in it. And you can live in that world for years and years, right? But we'll get back to that. Let's get to where you learned how to read the mind, where you learned how to read the body, where you learned how to read the energy. Okay? So if honeybees can see in ultraviolet light, and we've learned, thanks to the honeybee, about epigenetics, right? The honeybee really, really helped us to see epigenetics at a far super rate. So also a bee's life is 6 weeks, so watching the evolutionary progression is like, okay. So now you've learned how to read your abuser. For some reason you're stuck with this abuser. It doesn't matter why, right? So when you smell their smells, you can tell if they're going to hit you today. You can tell. When you see their behavior, you might even notice things like how they feel based on how they dress, the clothes that they choose, the colognes or the perfumes that they choose, their diet. Yeah. Right? You start to recognize all the patterns. You're drawing all of these conclusions, making the connections. That's happening here in some sense of science, right? Okay? So here's where it gets really tricky. Here's where it gets really funny too. So you've evolved to become able to see in ultraviolet light, right? Children see energy. We know that. The honeybees see the ultraviolet light. We know that. So that means you can. All right, but here, let's get real wild with the word light. What is light? From the darkness came the light, right? Let's talk about we if you are following in order, the theory of the Big Bang. I put my little spin on that shit, right? So here we go. Religion is the topic. I was born into the Catholic religion. I loved it. It was so fun for me. I was so into it. Full on. It was escape for me. I was pressured sometimes too to be into it, to have to go to church on Sunday, but there was all the other things that I was involved in too, right? Yeah, all the other stuff. The bell choir, the whole fucking deal. All right? I read the Bible cover to cover multiple times. Why? Because of fascination. Like the recognition too that this isn't reality. This is an interpretation over something that can't be explained. And then we observe separation in society, and we know that there was a disconnect somewhere, that this Bible, that this book was generated to form a strange idea that we could maybe use to maybe create a society that wasn't on the same page, right? Because if we're all on the same page, boy, it sure would be fucking easy and convenient, wouldn't it? Okay, so here we go. The light born from the darkness, the Big Bang, if you will. The light had to come from somewhere, because you need the contrast to have the awareness, right? You want the contrast so much so that you'll argue with the motherfucker. Sometimes so much that even if you don't actually have factual information, that you've done all kinds of research, you'll still pretend like you know, and you'll fucking argue and da-da-da-da-da, right? You'll argue over masks. You'll argue over COVID. You'll selectively choose your facts, compile the data, to make assessments and tell somebody else that they are wrong for wearing masks, or they're wrong for not wearing masks, or this, that, and the other thing. Where's your prana going? Anyway, so the light is it's powerful, my friends. The cell, six-sided. We were told about Jesus being God. Wait a minute. Born again. Wait a minute. Separation. Delusion. That's delusion. God is one, my friends. And God would, of course, if there was a God, would want you to experience the same thing. Of course. It goes without saying. So if you take one law and apply that, you're good. What is that one law? Do no harm. Right? Do no harm. So you're absolving the guilt and shame real quick, right? It's gone. Bye-bye. Jesus doesn't need to die for your sins. No. The Son is born. The light is delivered from the darkness. The sun shines upon you, my friends. In the darkness, there is light. The stars fall from the sky. A star is born. The star that you were taught in school has 5 points. You drew that shit over and over and over and over again. But the star has 6 sides. The cells in your brain, your body, the water molecules. It's 6-sided, my friends. You were taught to hate a certain people. So much so, you forgot one thing. Israelite. It's okay. Because then you continue to forget things. You judged all others besides you. People stolen from their homes, brought to different places to be servants, abused, oppressed, raped and pillaged. All have experienced this. Yeah. Many. And then this idea has changed and evolved over time. We're still doing this to people. Yeah. So as we come to a close here, I'm not sure if I have a religious preference, but I know that what's happening within this body is happening everywhere outside this body. Yeah, the water molecules hold the information, right? I'm drawing new connections constantly. I do know that trauma can hold me back, but I also know that trauma can stimulate more if I don't allow myself to be a victim, right? So then the clarity, the light shines. And I don't need to hold prejudice. I don't need to hold guilt and shame. The more that I know you, the more that I then know me, myself. How do I get there, you say? Well, it's a Fibonacci. The more I learn myself, the more I learn you. The more I have empathy and compassion for myself, the more I have for you. The more education, the more awareness, the more sharing. Share your culture. It is your duty, as they say, the Kanaka Maoli say. Share your kuleana. It is your kuleana to share. Your culture. I know there's contradictions. I know there's bad people out there. I get it. It's okay. The sun shining the light. You were a star. Then you were a mushroom. All of this is one big illusion. The star was born. The light in the sky. The mushrooms. You share so much DNA with a mushroom. Why? Why would the microbiome of the soil create that fungus? Why would it create you? In the absence of light, why would anything be born? Why would the light then shine upon anything? Because you're perfect.